Hi, everyone. Thank you so much once again for joining us for this interview series. We're so excited today to have another Drawdown Georgia Climate and Equity Grant recipient organization with us today, an organization that I deeply admire. And so I'm so glad to have both Casey Hood and Raevin Hawkins here from Community Farmers Markets. Hi, Casey and Raevin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes, of course. So let's kick this right off. I'd like to start by asking you both to introduce yourselves and introduce the work that Community Farmers Market does in the community, which is so important.
Yeah, my name is Raven. I am an Atlanta native. I was born and raised in the city. I went to school at Florida A&M University and I ended up studying construction engineering. From there, I really wanted to be involved in sustainable projects. So I got involved with community farmers markets, doing food access aggregate markets. And from there, I was able to get into operations, which allowed me to connect with local farmers, sourcing produce from right around the Southeast and within the city. And from there, we've just continued to do aggregate markets and food access projects with Title I schools. And it's been a great opportunity for me to give back to the community and be a part of the community that I was raised in.
And I'm Casey Hood. I'm also Atlanta, born and raised. This is my home. I studied out in California and studied environmental science and international intercultural studies. Out there, I worked on my school's farm and did our compost program. And that was kind of my intro into the agricultural world. When I graduated, I spent some time traveling and woofing, where I got to work on organic farms around the world. I worked in Chile and Greece on some local farms, and then came back to Atlanta and carried that work over, working with a couple of local farms. That's how I first got connected with community farmers markets as a farm vendor. Community farmers markets is a local nonprofit. We were founded in 2011. We're an umbrella organization for markets. So when you think about your regular outdoor farmers markets, we have 4 big regular farmers markets. And then we also have aggregated markets. They're kind of like farm stand pop-ups where we're buying from local farmers and then we're selling on their behalf. And we kind of see it as a little bit of a vendor support for farmers because they have a full-time job out in the field. And sometimes asking them to come out to a market is a lot. It's a second job at the end of the day. So we run those 2 different types of models of markets. We also have a really robust outreach program. So you might see us at schools or community centers talking about how important it is to eat locally and the importance of sustainability in the agricultural world. We do chef demos and just basic lessons around that. We also have a vendor support program because we work with over 160 small businesses through our markets. 43 of those are local farmers. So that can be helping them with logo design or webinars that help elevate their business. We also offer financial incentives through the market through our SNAP and EBT match program and $5 vouchers that we give out whenever we do our outreach in the community. So that's just a little bit about the organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much for talking about that. And I thank you also for introducing us to community farmers markets because I have visited the martyr markets that you all do before.
Yeah,
so I'm really, really happy to talk to y'all for many reasons, but one of them is because of the great work I've seen you all do firsthand.
Yeah.
Community farmers markets received a 2024-2025 Drawdown Georgia Climate Solutions and Equity Grant. Congratulations to you all. And I was so glad to be a part of the advisory committee that awarded that to you all, as well as the rest of that cohort. Really phenomenal projects, some of which we've already heard from this year. Please tell us more about the work of these grants and funding the community and about the recent shift in strategy for your organization. I know that you all changed your strategy a bit from the last time that we encountered you. So I'd love to hear more about that transition.
Yeah, so the grant is based around this idea and what we've seen in markets that at the end of the day, sometimes our farmers have excess produce and that can become food waste or it can go back into compost, which isn't so bad. But what if we could make it into a value added product that is great for our community as well? So the grant is based around taking that excess produce and then turning it into value added products that we then give to our community. They're all plant-based, veggie forward recipes that we're using, and we're working with our local farmers to procure the vegetables for those dishes. And how we started that with the MARTA markets, like you were talking about. Raven, do you want to talk a little bit about the test kitchens that we did last winter at the MARTA markets?
Yeah, for sure. So last year, towards the winter season, as things slowed down, we shifted towards doing a test kitchen, which took place at the MARTA stations. We tested 20 recipes, and we had our educational chefs come out and provide those recipes and samples to the community. We got the feedback from that, and from there, we narrowed it down to 10 recipes that we wanted to offer to the community. And that process involved connecting with farmers, getting their excess produce, and processing it and packaging it and then providing it to the community. Most recently, we've made sweet potato chili that was distributed at an elementary school, and that was just an amazing opportunity to send families home with a dinner that they didn't have to prepare. All they had to do was thaw it out and serve it. And then the next time we did a drawdown distribution, we did an applesauce with seconds from apples from Beach Creek, which is a local orchard.
Mm-hmm. And so when you mentioned the shift in our process, originally we did all of our test kitchen with the MARTA markets, which was great, but we recently took on this grant with United Way where we are working with 3 partner sites that are all Title I APS schools. Each time that we're having one of those markets, we're interacting with at least 100 individual families, 3-4 times what we were seeing when we were out at the MARTA markets. And we thought this would be a great pivot. We have the opportunity to provide these products to more families, more kids. And so each time that we have these markets, we have our educational chef out there doing a chef demo. And then we're also providing the dish. As Raven mentioned, that sweet potato chili, that was our first successful foray with the project, and being able to see a parent's face and just, don't worry about dinner tonight. We got your sweet potato chili. And knowing that that came from a local farm, it's been a really cool project to see it finally take flight. We are also partnering with Open Hand Atlanta, who is allowing us to use their certified kitchen space. And then for packaging, we have been really excited to work with Better Earth, who makes all compostable packaging. And they have a base down here in Atlanta. So we've been really excited to partner with them so that we're not using plastic packaging, but it's compostable and, further builds on the Drawdown Georgia goals.
I absolutely love this. I love hearing about this. I love hearing about not only the MARTA markets, but also this is a new development with working with APS. Mm-hmm. So important. We know that it's not a secret. There are many children and families that are food insecure. And sometimes, we certainly saw that during COVID. I live in DeKalb County, and DeKalb County had decided to distribute meals because they realized that kids, some of their only meals that they were getting were at school.
Right.
And so that is so important for organizations, community organizations especially, to be thinking about how are we making families and children more food secure. So I love hearing about that opportunity to feed the community on a bigger level.
Yeah. And with these markets, we're specifically we're visiting each school once a month, and we're choosing to structure that around, like, if they have spring break coming up and it might be a time where they don't get that guaranteed lunch at school, right, we're giving them free produce and the drawdown meal to kind of help pass through whatever the vacation is or when they're going to be out of school.
How do you center issues around equity? I mean, we just talked about it, but just kind of elevating on that. How are we centering issues around equity in the work that you're doing? And why is that an important focus for your organization?
Yeah, so at all of our markets, we double SNAP and EBT benefits through a partnership with Wholesome Wave Georgia. We're able to double the amount of money that a family would be able to spend at a market. And by doing that, it just makes the farmers market produce a little bit more accessible to families, take a little bit of the burden of the sticker shock that you may experience at a farmer's market, reduce that a little bit so that people are able to shop freely and get seasonal local produce.
And we've also really tried, I mentioned that we have our 4 big outdoor farmers markets, but with things like the MARTA markets, the APS school markets, we're really trying to focus in on neighborhoods that don't have direct access to a grocery store, especially for neighborhoods that are more walking centered and might not have as much access to a car. So in these low income, low access access neighborhoods. We're getting creative with how we're bringing the food to folks. And that's where you're seeing our aggregated market model. It might be in a neighborhood spot where a full big market might not be what that community is looking for, but being able to pop up with the farm stand and provide that is more accessible. So that's kind of how we're picking those neighborhoods. And then also when we think about all of the vendors that we serve, all of our BIPOC vendors get a 50% discount on their application. All of our farmers that we work with, they also receive waived vendor fees, so they don't have to pay the weekly vendor fee. We feel like that's really important to bring equity into the businesses that we're working with in the farmers markets. 46% of our vendors are BIPOC vendors, 53% are women. So we really try to help our vendor pool, folks that might have not had the same opportunity in the past, to help elevate their businesses and give them a little bit of a price cut where we can on what we're offering.
That's really fantastic. I have another question. You were talking about the APS, the schools that you pop up at once a month, which I think is a great cadence. Have you faced any conversations around food preparation as far as like how long it's going to take? A lot of these parents are working all day, and so how long it's going to take to prepare the food while the kids are doing homework or whatever in the evening? And how have you combated that, with, oh, we would need to make a quick meal, but we want it to be healthy? Because I think a lot of times when we think about quick meals, our parents are thinking about, okay, let's like go grab something from a restaurant, or let's go through the drive-through real quick. And so have y'all thought about, and I'd love to hear more about your kind of mindset around making not only the food more accessible, but healthy meals more accessible?
Yeah. So as I was saying before, each of these markets, we make sure we really feel like a chef demo is a crucial part. And you will see that at all of the markets that we do,
Right.
because we want the recipe to be accessible. So whatever it is that they're making, it's easy enough that they could chop it up and make it literally on a little table outside of a school or at a market. So we try to make it easy. At all of the APS markets that we're doing, we also have the recipe printed up. And whatever the chef is making that day is the free produce that we have out on the table. So literally someone can go through the line, taste something, get inspired, and then pull the recipe and know that they can make that at home.
That's fantastic. Important.
Yeah.
I've also noticed that at the APS free produce markets, there's a lot of conversation going through the line when people are picking up their vegetables about how to use it. So there's a lot of learning from the community about favorite recipes and learning how to use zucchini. We've had conversations about, you can prepare your squash the way you prepare your zucchini, and a lot of people may not know that, or just need that little spark of inspiration to go home and make a delicious, healthy meal.
And also, we try to make all of our recipes that our chefs do super accessible. So for example, if you went to our Instagram, you could click on summer recipes and see a ton of recipes that pop up that our chefs have made in the past. So try to put it out there wherever we can. And then Raevin, did you want to speak a little bit to kind of how the tier of how we find farmers for our aggregate markets?
Our first focus, our number one tier, would be hyperlocal food, which for us is defined as produce coming from within a 10-mile radius of the distribution site. And we're really lucky in Atlanta to have access to so many urban farms. So we're always going to look to them first and look to where they're distributing first to see if we can get produce from them. From there, we go to local farms, which for us is within a 10-mile radius. And with those local farms, we're hoping to connect with BIPOC farmers or historical farms that are practicing conservation and are really focused on conserving the history of that agricultural site. From there, for things maybe like sweet potatoes or onions, I've noticed that those tend to come from maybe our neighbors in Alabama or South Carolina, local and regional farmers. Within about 200 miles, we also are able to source from them. Keeping it regional, keeping it seasonal is our goal for that portion. And then we at Marta Market had also had things like bananas, which, as you may know, don't necessarily come from the States, but it is really important to offer an easy, familiar snack that people can eat on the go, that people don't have to try and overcome a learning curve on how to eat. Keeping a balance of local and familiar food is always great. And then with our APS free produce market, we're able to really narrow in on Drawdown Georgia's mission by partnering with Concrete Jungle. And what Concrete Jungle helps us do is get produce from farms. They glean produce from farms, which means that they get produce that would otherwise not be distributed due to cosmetic differences or things that a supermarket may not accept but is otherwise fine to eat. They partner with us, they deliver the food directly to the schools, and we're able to reduce food waste that way by distributing that food for free. And we know that that food is going to a family who needs it. And we're just really excited that we're able to partner with Concrete Jungle because they are a great partner in reducing food waste and connecting us with more local and regional farms.
I really appreciate the intentionality behind like local, supporting local, like the carbon footprint. How far are we going to get this food? That intentionality is so important. And I've lived in my share of food scarcity spaces in Atlanta. I'm not from Atlanta. I'm from up north, but I've been here for some time. And so I think I certainly am appreciative of the intentionality around bringing fresh food, especially to areas that need the business, that need the traffic, but also to places that need fresh and healthy food. So doubly impactful on both sides of that journey for the food. And I think that's so important. So that's wonderful. We talked a lot about y'all's access to some of these things and how you're providing access for other folks in various ways. Your own access as an organization, your challenges. What are the biggest challenges that you're already facing or that you foresee facing in your work? And how have you overcome those challenges? And what lessons have you learned along the way in that process?
So from the farmer perspective and, in the vein of climate change, we have certainly seen our farmers really get hard hit by extreme weather.
Sure.
It could be flooding. It could be these extreme freezes where we've dropped considerably, this back and forth on the temperature, crazy wind that just rips up all of somebody's row cover. So that's been hard to watch. And we've tried to figure out how do we best support our farmers. We have a farmer fund that we work with through Georgia Organics. We've also been able to assist in helping to build and connect farmers with resources to get better infrastructure. A great example of that is we help fund this incredible group called Eco Paradigm that helps with farm infrastructure. And we help them go out to one of our farmers, Caribe United, and build these hoop houses that are better equipped to deal with extreme weather. Another challenge that we see is the aging out of farmers. So there's a generational shift that we see where we've got the elders in our farmer community that are aging out, and the younger generation of farmers who their biggest challenge is land access because they don't own their land. The thought of somebody telling them they can no longer rent there, that's an issue. You can't invest in the land that you're building on. So have tried to do what I can to introduce our aging out farmers to our young farmers. Is there a connection there on passing land over to each other? That's something that's important to us. And then, of course, funding right now is an issue. And I know, Raevin, you were feeling the same way. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think over the past year and even more recently in 2025, we've definitely felt the uncertainty in funding for nonprofits, land-based, and equity initiatives. I think the most important thing is that we're able to rely on local partners such as Wholesome Wave Georgia, who keeps our SNAP match going, and really leaning on our community to try to help fulfill the needs when we aren't sure where our funding or if our funding is going to be continued or what the landscape of grant cycles is going to look like in the future. And in that same vein, especially working at Marta Market, I was able to notice a disruption of federal and state benefits like SNAP and EBT during the pandemic, and especially after the pandemic. A lot of people's benefits were drastically reduced, and that naturally just is a barrier to people receiving nutritional whole foods that they would otherwise like to purchase. It has been a struggle for a lot of our community members to either get those benefits reinstated or readjusting to the smaller amount of benefits that they do receive. And with that, again, leaning on our local partners and continuing to do outreach in communities that are more impacted by these problems is our main way of combating those issues.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of conversations on this show about philanthropy and about the ways in which philanthropy can support folks in a changing world, and how organizations and philanthropy especially is going to need to adjust the way that it supports organizations that are doing such phenomenal, impactful work like community farmers markets. This has been really insightful, and I appreciate you both for being here. I guess one of my last questions before I ask my favorite question, you know, in hearing about, I really love what you said, Raevin, about the learning that you hear about in the line when, you know, when the folks are coming through the line and talking about, you know, how do you prepare zucchini? Oh, you can prepare it just like your squash, and learning from each other and that peer-to-peer learning. What other feedback have you gotten? Both ways in which you can improve, but also ways that this has helped folks. I would love to hear more about the ways in which the community has reacted to this impactful work that y'all are doing.
Yeah, it's been really great. The community is very accepting and excited to see us when we're on campus, when we are running Marta Markets. You really are able to form a connection with the people that you see week after week, month over month. And I think that just provides trust building opportunity. And people are just very excited that we're there, that we're providing these opportunities to receive produce. And yeah, it's been a great opportunity. Casey, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that this time more than ever, I feel from our community that the third space that we create at our markets is so important. That's what makes us different from going to a grocery store. And people need community right now. And so
Absolutely.
we are able to offer that every week, multiple times a week. You can come out and be a part of our community and find that third space to connect with folks and get some groceries while you're at it and support your local farmers. So I see our community really showing up and appreciating that.
That's great to hear. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
This is my favorite question. It's the last question I have for you all. Thank you so much once again for joining us. And what is giving you each hope around climate in Georgia?
Yeah, so there's so many ways to find hope. The patrons of the markets are definitely people who show up enthusiastically. They engage with our opportunities and are just a great motivator and touch point for communication and education around seasonality and climate impacts. Also, I would say my coworkers and fellow market managers, they do great work every week to put on markets, to provide that third space that Casey was talking about, whether it be children's reading circles, yoga opportunities, getting your knives sharpened, basic things like that. I've really found hope in seeing the same faces, deepening connection, and it's just a really great, a really great beacon of light in a otherwise not unsecure, situation. So it's been nice.
And I would say, I mean, the farmers always give me hope for what they go through to bring that food to market, and what they've been through, whether it's funding or the crazy weather. They always show up. They're consistent and they're there for their community to nourish their community. And they always inspire me. And also, I would say, like, all of the foundations that have contributed to Drawdown Georgia, y'all give me hope that, the philanthropy, like, folks see what's happening and they understand the importance of supporting organizations like ours. So that really gives me hope. All of our community partners too, I have noticed in the last couple of months, just seeing all of the local organizations like ours, Wholesome Wave Georgia, Foodwell Alliance, Georgia Organics, United Way, Concrete Jungle. These are all organizations. I really feel like we're coming together on a common thread of building support amongst each other. And then I would also say all the kids that we see at the market, like, they are a constant beacon of hope. They are engaged, they are excited, they are curious, and they inspire me. I see them going places and I see them just learning in the market space too.
I didn't know y'all did knife sharpening at the market.
Yes. Spike is the knife sharpener's name. He's out consistently at a lot of the markets.
I was just saying,
Yeah.
person we I think we need new knives.
Yeah.
So I will remember that. I haven't been to the Martyr Markets in some time, so I'll have to revisit again. Thank you, Communities Farmers Market, for the work that you are doing. It's so important. It's so valuable. And y'all can only do but so much. If we all do a little bit, then a lot will get done. If each of us are doing a little bit, then a lot will get done. And I certainly think Community Farmers Market is doing as much as y'all can. And so I really appreciate the work Casey you're doing and Raevin you're doing and all y'all over there at Community Farmers Market. So thank you all so much. And thank you for being here to talk about your story. Thank you all for joining us once again. Please continue to visit our YouTube channel to see all of the great organizations that we are talking to, especially our Drawdown Georgia Climate Solutions and Equity Grant recipients. They're really doing phenomenal work in this state and are giving me a lot of hope around climate in Georgia. So thank you all again. Thank you for watching, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.